so that you can see all the slides. And when you type a question, obviously you're going to have to bring it back out. And down here in the bottom left, you see a lavender or purple hash mark. Type your questions there anytime during the presentation. And just be sure and hit send. And then at the end of the presentation, again, we'll answer as many questions as we can there. Okay? So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today's info session. And on the left, we have Emmanuel Perdikas. He's with the Coginov Corporation, and he's in market development. Fred Stacy is the one whose camera just came on. And by the way, Emmanuel won't be on camera today. It's not working properly, so it'll just be Fred on camera. And if you're watching this as a recording, Fred's face won't even show up. So, all right, Fred is the COO of the Call Center Corporation. So first, with Emmanuel, his well-earned reputation originates. He's got 15 years of extensive experience as a sales and marketing person, leader. He's helped many high-end technology and manufacturing firms, retail corporations. He's helped them increase their market presence, and he's created effective sales organizations and has led them. His accolades come from his work heading Real Catalog, where he was a senior partner and CEO of the core team that created the Real Catalog media management system. His credentials are further enhanced by his leadership profile at VeroPro, NetApps ID, and MyTech. He held significant roles there, heading the business development, commercialization, and market launch of emerging technologies worldwide. And then we have Fred. Fred Stacy is the Chief Operating Officer of the Call Center Corporation. He's held numerous senior operating positions in software and technology firms, both in the U.S. and internationally. He's got a significant background in building and managing training teams, was responsible for the creation and build-out of various corporate training programs. He's spoken at national leadership events, motivational events. He's authored a book, which probably some of you have, Cut Out the Garbage, and that focuses on call center sales management. Welcome, both of you, and thank you for being here. Today is here's the overview of what we're going to cover. First, a story that Manuel's going to tell of the customer engagement past, and he'll explain that. And all of these will make a lot more sense, but just to give you an idea, we're going to talk about bringing back personalized service and engaging through semantics. And what is semantics? We'll define that. Rewards, how you use them. Dormant data, the first step. New ecosystem tools and implementations, and how we can take advantage of these tools in marketing. Okay, with that, we'll start with Emmanuel. Again, thank you, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Phil. Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you joining us here today. Before I get into talking about customer engagement and marketing tools for the call center, how they've evolved and how we've gotten where we are today, I wanted to talk about how in the past local shopkeepers were able to use something that was giving them intelligence on us. Remember when you'd walk into a local shop, how you were greeted immediately, asked about your interests. It seemed like the shop owner always knew what you were talking about. He could relate to your needs. He always seemed helpful and was always courteous. He could understand your individual interests. Well, we might think he was psychic, but in reality what he was doing was he was being friendly and conversational, and he was gaining our confidence. He was giving himself an opportunity to build on his intelligence and on your individual situation. What he was doing was he was registering details about us without being too intrusive. He kept us smiling, kept us laughing, he kept us talking about family, work, general, just about anything personal, really. He'd make us his friend, and he knew exactly how to treat us, and he knew how to keep us coming back. He was basically building loyalty. So what does this teach us? Next slide. Well, he was listening, he was understanding, right? So by listening and understanding to the customer, it's a vital step in customer engagement. Because in essence, when we have a visitor to our storefront today, we're basically, what we're doing is we're having customers visiting our store. So what we should be doing is looking at ways to engage them and understand what their needs are. When we understand their needs, we know how to treat them better. We know what to point them to. We know how to present them with new interests, and of course, seem as if we're providing them with some better personal service. So what did we do? How did we try to do this? We tried FAQs. We tried search resources. We thought this would help, but these resources ended up struggling. Why? Because, well, for one, they're not very personal. They can get long and confusing and sometimes often outdated. Not to mention, not sure, but I mean, if we look at statistics, usually customers are not interested in reading through lengthy pages and documents to find what they need. And they're also not interested in looking through irrelevant search results coming up on their screen. They're not interested in, most of the time when they do find something and they end up wasting all that time and it's irrelevant to their needs, well, they leave and they take a bad experience with them. So what can we do? Next slide, please. Well, we can start by capturing and processing all this human-friendly information that they're leaving behind. It's called unstructured data. When we take unstructured data and we organize all these bits and pieces of data that we're capturing at the query box, for instance, we're able to define opportunity. We're able to build insight. If we look at Google, Google is capturing and analyzing every search we do. They're understanding what we're typing, how we're typing it, if we're misspelling, if we're typing in a different language, and they're building new opportunities daily to engage us. This is how they discovered that a series of 12 digits in a search query represented a FAQs tracking number. It's also why they discovered why Twitter and Facebook friendly posts can tell them what the traffic is like at rush hour without even looking out the window. So in essence, the query box ends up being our window to the world. I mean, it's an open window to associate in search queries with things like ticket numbers, part numbers, interests, persona, and consumer behavior, and sometimes even present us with some competitive overview of what our competitors are doing. When we capture and we consolidate all this information with all our customer engagement, within all our customer engagement channels, we're pretty much providing ourselves with ways to act, react, and interact with the consumer. We're giving ourselves a way to adapt and build our intelligence of each of our consumers, each of our visitors to our modern-day storefront. So how do we collaborate all this information? How does all this work? What's bringing all this together? Next slide, please. It's semantics. And you're probably asking, semantics, what is that? How does it work? What does it do? Well, semantics meaning is basically, what does it mean? What does it symbolize? So when we look at basic keywords and a basic keyword search, the first thing it does is it basically there asks you for typing your query. Problem is, traditional search does not identify the meaning of any of the keywords you're typing or in what context they're being used. So the information never gets identified, it can never be related, it can never be connected, so it never gets processed. So how does semantics do a better job, you might ask? Well, the thing is with semantics, it actually defines in what context within a phrase that a keyword is being used. It actually bridges other words together to form relationships and similarities, and also understand the context in which the keywords are being used within your phrases. Semantics is designed to extract broader intent and context. Let's take this example. We look at vanilla ice, and then we look at vanilla ice within a query. We know we're looking for either a wrapper or an ice cream flavor. What a traditional search will do is it'll basically look at frequencies of the way the word's used, frequencies of how many times the word is presented in the results, and other page links to define how the results are going to be returned. It fails to identify the key concepts within the query that bridges the relationships in order to form results. Semantics has the ability to create this weighted concept or representation for any concept and any keyword used within a query. And it can do this and relate it to share similarities, group information together, and provide marketing with a very good tool to analyze and bridge some gaps and understand the consumer a lot better. Next slide, please. Today, with customer engagement and the ability to process and capture unstructured information and all the tools available to us, we are able to gather a lot of unstructured information coming to us from different sources. We can identify contextual concepts, discovery patterns, and list of results. When we can do this, we can group the information and we can produce some intent and sentiment from consumer queries or unstructured data. Semantics also offers us the ability to offer this information and provide a personal, courteous, interactive experience. Let's take an example of what Disney just did with the My Magic wristband. They created this wristband and put out about $800 million into setting up this Wi-Fi network where every move and every action that a person is doing within the parks, anywhere within the parks, purchases, rides they go on, they're receiving perks. And the reason they're receiving these perks is because they actually want them to use more and more of these wristbands because they're gaining more information, they're accumulating more data, and they're understanding personal interests of each and every individual customer or visitor to the park. Then they're able to offer some personal things like personal offers and coupons. They can alert users to different types of information, and this is done in real time. And through the search query, you can do the same. By analyzing all the information available to you and providing this in an interactive way, you can seem as if you're understanding your customer better, and also that you're relating to them a lot better. Next slide, please. So in summary, what I wanted to say is that if we can understand all the unstructured and structured information from our consumer data that we're able to process and form it into nice groups and tidy rows and organize it well, and give us these dashboards, we're able to take advantage of some of the things Google has been able to do daily, capture and analyze these queries. And leave your customers with this good first impression, build on their brand, and build on consumer loyalty. So I'll pass it over to Fred now, and I'll let him go into the consumer engagement tools, that how they've evolved, and pretty much the future of them. Thanks, everybody.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Emmanuel. So I'm going to start back out on the same slide Emmanuel was coming up and talk a little bit and dive a little bit deeper into this. First, engaging your customers really starts with understanding your current data. Most companies have not even considered the wealth of knowledge they have available inside their current organization. Emmanuel spoke of unstructured data. So, unstructured data is anything that exists in a format that cannot be pulled out by a basic analytics or within a SQL database or Oracle database or a common format that's easily searchable. Unstructured data is represented by things like emails, documents, any number of different types of forms of where data exists in hence unstructured format. So when you're starting out considering your customer engagement platform, we always recommend first take a look inside. Look at your current data, where it sits. I refer to this as dormant data. It's the information that's been sleeping in your network that you really have had no visibility and no way to understand and really pull anything out of that. So this slide specifically represents the process in which we go through when looking for dormant data. You go through a discovery phase. You talk about collecting the data, organizing it, getting it into whatever organizational format works for your industry or your business, and then analyzing it. Get to understand the sense and the context in which it's used, and then create some outlines based on either dashboards or reports or some way to get a visibility into what your current data is today and how it exists in the unstructured format to help you understand really what your customers are looking for. With the call center specific people, as Phil had mentioned in the beginning, I've been in the call center industry for a very long time. One of the things that always frustrated me for a long time is not being able to analyze and understand and interpret the stuff that we collect from, say, for instance, in call notes. Agents in particular are entering in a lot of different formats. You try to teach them some regular, processes to these agents, so that they enter similar notes or use the same keywords or use the same, codes to mean different things. But in the end, you can't really analyze it. You don't get any visibility into what those notes are. And those can exist in your CRM. They can exist in your, maybe you've got a scripting tool or inside your telephony database, or maybe they exist inside, in today's world, the chat modules, social media data that you're collecting. All of these different formats are very unstructured. There's no real, one place where you can enter a lot of this information in and create a structured environment to then do basic analytics on. So first things you need to do is doing a content audit. Get a hold of that dormant data. Understand what your customers are asking for. Get some categorization around it, and then you can figure out how to move forward. So if you could, next slide, please, Phil. All right. So with the new ecosystem, this is something that we've talked about in a couple of different demonstrations. I bring this back up because I want to make sure that everybody's thinking about customer engagement in the full cycle of where it exists today. So you've got, obviously voice, your phone calls, your outbound, inbound calls happening to your customers. That's clearly a channel. Knowledge base, search tools, Emmanuel touched a little bit on this. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it as we get into this. Chat, there's opportunities for customer engagement and communications through that. Email, we've all been using email for a long time, but it's very rare. As a matter of fact, I'd say 1 out of every 100 people that I talk to actually do anything with that email data, or other than the agents out on the floor. And then there's SMS and text. That's starting to become a path for customer engagement, and that also goes into mobile and mobile strategies and ways to communicate and engage your customers through your mobile website. And then, of course, social media, probably the one that the last 5 years or so, there's been a lot of push in our industry, trying to figure out how do we use social media, how do we engage the customers through it, is it marketing, is it sales, and the fight back and forth. But no one really does a good job, or I shouldn't say no one, that's a pretty general statement. Most companies don't do a good job of understanding what their customers are actually trying to communicate to them through social media. There are some products out there that do sentiment analysis, to understand exactly, what your customer is trying to say, or does feed it back into your call center. But from a perspective of marketing or, product development or a business in general and understanding our customer engagement and our strategies, most companies don't take it to that point and haven't moved it there. That's a critical piece in customer engagement moving forward. So as this exists in our new ecosystem, I talked about the stuff to the right. Now to the left-hand side, in the new ecosystem, the way that this should exist as we move forward, and it is moving that direction, is you should have the image of the blue person or purple or whatever color it is. It kind of represents artificial intelligence. It's semantics, it's natural language processing, it's the engines that are out there that can read and interpret and understand unstructured data. There are the processes and the automation in the gears that actually feed this information into a structured format now in the database side, which then is presented to your agents or to your business development people, your product development, your marketing teams to provide that managed data, but especially if you can get it back to your agents and how they need to respond and how they can improve in the way that they engage the customers directly, because most of the stuff is now feeding back into the call center at one point or another. So the new ecosystem exists to bring all of this stuff into and through one input or one format of categorizing, understanding, and interpreting all of this different data. Next slide. All right, so implementations of customer engagement. A lot of people will come and talk about how do we implement social media engagement? How do we implement chat engagements? From my perspective, I think we start out and you understand your dormant data. We've already talked through that. One of the best places to start after that is through your storefront, your modern-day storefront, what Emmanuel is referring to as your website. Your customers engage you no matter whether you're in a B2B, B2C, any type of environment. The first thing anybody's going to do when they find out about your company is they're going to go take a look at your website. So one of the most powerful and easiest ways to start an implementation is to focus on, how do you get, once you get your customers in your storefront, what are you going to do to engage them? Now, obviously, you can't do the shop owner. Clearly it's a website. There are chat tools out there that you can use. Those are good. But people, you get a 50-50 response, based upon whether someone is willing to engage someone through chat. But there is one thing that almost everybody has put onto their website, and that's a search. We've gotten used to it thanks to Google, Yahoo. These search engines have taught us that we can find data quickly. Now, as Emmanuel was speaking to, using semantics engines and APIs integrated with, your web-based knowledge base or your search tools gives you a very powerful way to deliver the content to engage your customer immediately. Tools like this are designed for one-to-one ratios, meaning one question to one answer. The idea of semantics and these powerful tools is to really get the customer the right answer right away, and then utilize the tool to drive them to the place where you want them to go next. So if they ask a question about pricing, you probably want to lead them to the path of how to get a hold of you or how to contact your sales team, or maybe a specials page. These engines should not be limited to just keywords. And that's the problem with the way that the majority of the search engines out there work today, or search tools. They are very limited, and they can't read, in Emmanuel's example, Vanilla Ice, just the simple addition of the terms of, where can I get the flavor of Vanilla Ice, and where can I download songs for Vanilla Ice. That semantically is two completely different statements, and your tool should be smart enough to know the difference. However, with traditional keyword searches, and traditional search engines, it's almost impossible for them to deliver that one-to-one methodology. So it's important when you're looking at this stuff to utilize the tools that are going to engage your customer, get them the right answer, and then also be interactive. don't just display them hundreds and thousands of different results that potentially could be what they're looking for. Provide them with interactive ways to see it. I've got a little image down there of a company that's using a tool very much like this. And instead of navigating to a typical 100 question or 100 possible responses to their one question, it found the one response, and then it provided a natural pop-up to a special. I mean, those are visual things that you can drive on your site based upon the questions that they're asking. Content delivery is critical to marketing. I mean, we all know this. We all know that the content is king for all different kinds of purposes, SEO, and from a marketing standpoint, it's always going to be a critical piece. But being able to control what someone's looking for and driving them to the content that you want, that gives you the power to really control and drive your audience to where you want them to be. Next slide. All right, so how do these things differ from FAQs, knowledge bases? I'll go through this real quick. FAQs are very flat file oriented. You have to search and you have to dig through it and find what you want. They're fine. If they're your frequently asked questions, it's a great starting point. Traditional knowledge bases, as I spoke, gives potentially thousands. Whereas these tools and utilizing semantics is designed to bring a one-to-one. So one of the terms, and I don't know if this is coined or not, it's something I started using over the last 3 months in working around semantics and understanding this stuff, is instead of first call resolution, first search resolution. The key to any type of interaction is that you give the customer an immediate response with the accurate answer, and you deliver it consistently. These tools differentiate. It changes the entire dynamics in the way they interact with your search on your website. Extremely powerful from a customer engagement standpoint. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about some deployment methods. Let's say you go through, you get your dormant data, you have a good idea of how you want to deploy it. You do decide that the right deployment method for you and the easiest path to start utilizing a tool like this is the search. There's a lot of different ways you can deploy it. You can do it customer-facing through the website, as I talked about. Has all the advantages of being able to drive the audience, the semantics, and the power of that. Hopefully when you do that, you can design some images or really drive people's attention to utilize that and get the most benefit out of having those quick and easy responses. But then there's also other sides of implementation. There's the agent-facing. The internal deployment, whether it's service, support. We all know how difficult it is to train. We all know how hard it is to deal with, turnover and all the things that we fight on a daily basis when running our call centers. The power of a tool like this deployed internally is tremendous. Significantly reducing your training time. A lot of people have tried to deploy typical knowledge bases, and some of them have seen some success. But I've also seen a lot of environments that try to deploy knowledge bases internally or search capabilities, and they're very hard, and they stumble, and they still provide they don't provide that one-to-one results. And that's really the key to this, is that when asked in a proper manner, that the question provides the right result. And agents quickly learn, can adopt, and then you can manage this easily. These tools should really have management councils in the background where you can see, how people are interacting with it, what they're doing, what are the primary keyword searches, and all the things that come with, deploying a tool like this in the background, so that you can manage it, update it, and continually improve it. And it should be able to learn. Part of the key to any good deployment of modern, knowledge bases or search tools like this is that you should be able to, it should be able to naturally be able to learn, how to answer those questions properly and when and how quickly to get to the next right answer. So the more times you're asked the question, the more times an agent puts a question in, the better the answers we'll get. And then integration options. Now, let's say you deploy it, on your website, customer-facing. You deploy it internally, but how else can you utilize it? So there are always integration options with, with APIs for semantics and the natural language processing that are integrating to chat tools. to be able to put the knowledge base as part of the chat. So a customer can engage your website and your chat tool. And a tool like this should be able to deliver the message, the right answers to the agent if they know the answer within a certain criteria. Say it's 98% accuracy, 95, whatever your company feels comfortable in. And then if that doesn't have an answer, it should be able to notify your agents who are managing your chat tools and bring them in and provide the agents with the option, hey, these might be the right 3 answers, but we're not 100% accurate. The knowledge base is not 100% accurate. Pick which right fits, or ask the customer to present the question in a different way and then provide the right answer. And it should be a fully integrated solution that goes all the way from your website deployment all the way through to your agent's activity. So chat tools are great. Email, you can logically see if you work at all in service support or any form of email gathering, what if you had visibility into understanding the actual unstructured data and what your customers were asking? What are the most commonly asked questions? What are the most common problems? Emails can be analyzed just the same as any other type of communication to determine, what's the story? How do I engage my customers better, and what are the things that they're asking? Social media, again, I've talked to that already. Mobile apps. The tools like this can be deployed in actual downloadable apps. So your customers, if they, if they're looking to utilize your knowledge base or commonly go to your mobile website, you can integrate a mobile app to your strategies and actually allow them to search via their cell phones or their mobile devices, whether it be smartphones or tablets or whatever it happens to be, on a mobile designed app that's created for working with smartphones or those mobile devices. I mean, that's critical. A lot of us don't realize that our websites, maybe we don't take the time, or we're just also busy trying to run our business, that we don't recognize that our websites do not deploy well across, or do not view well across the typical cell phone. Now, granted, the phones keep getting bigger and bigger every time I turn around, but it's still very hard to see on a 7-inch screen, let alone a 3-inch screen, what's actually being displayed. And then your CRM modules. Any way you collect data, it's clearly important. I think you get the point. Is that when you deploy a customer engagement model, you need to start out with a very focused approach, understand what you're doing today, what you have today, take advantage of the current data you have, and then deploy it in a very simple, easy to deploy method, and start to gather more and more data, and then engage your other tools. I've never recommended anybody take on an implementation and try to accomplish everything all at the same time. Tendency is that it crosses too many barriers. Too many political problems, within your company or organization that you've got to fight through to do something like that. Start easy, deploy it in the methods that you can control, and you can start to gather immediate insight. And from a customer engagement standpoint, your website is probably one that, from a marketing perspective, I know for myself, it's one of the methods that can quickly show a return on investment. Next slide. Okay. So another method that I haven't spoken about yet is there's something called a virtual agent. Now, a lot of people, they can debate what a virtual agent is. In our world, a true virtual agent is almost like artificial intelligence. Here's a sample of what one could look like. So through tools like this, they not only can sit there and look like a nice image, but they can speak, and they can talk, and they can engage your customer in a method that's interactive without a human, being involved. It bundles text to video. They're very extremely powerful. They're not as as difficult as you would think to deploy. The technology is getting better and better, and as bandwidth continues to increase, they're more effective. Clearly, if you're having someone surf on a slow connection, these tools may not always be the best. However, in today's world, most of us are sitting on plenty of bandwidth and able to access, videos and and different forms of media, and we're used to that. So this gives a very interactive, and it's not just a video. It's actually a live virtual assistant. It utilizes the same semantics. It utilizes the same technology and actually knows how to answer and respond to your customers and engage them directly without any involvement. So that's another way to really engage. Some companies, mostly bigger companies, have deployed similar products, but it's not as widely deployed yet. And part of it was because the first of entry, as you would assume, a technology like this was very expensive. It's become much more cost-effective for any size business to be able to implement. Once you get past the fear of, can I manage it, all the things that go into new technology, and you get past that, you can recognize that obviously this has a lot of power for engaging customers. You can do simple things like spinning off and having them speak about specials, things that are going on, events that you're attending. You can put in funny statements into the knowledge base and have it be more human-like and allow it to respond in those. As you continue to add and manage your knowledge base and your tools behind the scenes, it continues to get better and better at what it does. Next slide. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the implementation side. How can you implement a strategy around customer engagement? Now, as everybody probably saw, we marketed it. We also want to talk about marketing. Emmanuel touched on it a little bit. I touched on it here and there, but I really want to dive into this a little bit more. So, understanding natural language and the way your audience is using it to engage you. So there's the language, how they speak, what are the terms, what is the format in which they engage you, where they engage you from, what actual form of communication do they enjoy? Do they like chat? Do they like email? What are the things that they're utilizing? Those are all things that, from a marketing perspective, you want to know. And unfortunately, we're living in a disparaging, environment where we've got one company provides our CRM services, one company provides our website stuff, one does our ERP, one does our accounting. We've probably got 4 or 5 different softwares just to manage a single customer, and to be able to even, to get to the bottom of what maybe their answer is. So understanding all of these things are critical pieces to really, truly engaging your customer in today's world. Driving the answers, not based upon a guess, but utilizing real data. So, when we're talking about the search data, and in my next slide, I'll actually show you an image of what a unified dashboard could look like. But inside those dashboards, you can have a quick visibility into understanding what is the most commonly asked questions. And that, to me, is the one most powerful tool inside, any product that's analyzing your website. Because we use analytics, Google Analytics, on a daily basis. I'm watching every one of our websites, understanding where the traffic's coming from, what keywords they search for, when Google actually tells me, which isn't all the time. I wouldn't even say it's 50% of the time. And so I try to learn as much as I want, but with a tool like this, you can actually see on your site how customers are engaging you in a non-intrusive way. They're using the search tool to find their answer. They want to. Again, we've been trained by Google and all the search engine companies to do this. So, they want to use it. They're going to enter the questions that they're looking for. So what if you had immediate visibility into what the most frequently asked questions are? Not only that, but you have immediate visibility into the questions that you don't have answers for on your website or inside your knowledge base. You can learn anything from where your product needs to go, what customers are looking for, trying, what the questions are, the problems that they're frequently having. From a marketing perspective, just knowing what your audience wants is huge. We try to guess, we do polls, we hope that people are honest with us. With the search tool, they're giving, specifically what they want to know and the means in which they want to know it. And you can take that information and change and really focus your efforts on your storefront to deliver the content that you know your customers want. That's a very huge step in the right direction in engaging your customers. And then you have constant access to shifts and change in those questions, being able to visibly see that in an ongoing basis and understand that. So if you could, next slide, Phil. So a unified dashboard. You know, these tools, there's a lot of different companies out there that provide great dashboards. You know, really having the semantics and the natural language processing and the engine under the hood is essential. Being able to display it and see it on a live statistic. So seeing things like, you know, frequent terms that are being utilized right now on the fly. What are the questions with no answers? What are the most frequently asked questions? How are your questions actually, you know, how are your visits going? What are your statistics of questions to visits? You know, how many questions do you have right answers? All these visibility things in a weekly, monthly, quarterly, you know, however you want to view them. You do need in today's world a live view into this data. You know, there was a time where we could make decisions based upon reports that we ran on a weekly or a monthly basis. As we all know in our industry, especially in call centers, everything's now. You have to understand what's going on right this minute. And the technology's there. You know, it's available. So it's definitely something you know, that you should be looking to deploy. If you're going to do a customer engagement strategy in your company, you know, try to figure out a way or a product or solution to bring in a unified dashboard. So next slide. All right. So to kind of summarize everything up, you know, customer engagement has changed. Your website is your new storefront. You know, search and semantics are obviously, as you can tell, a very powerful tool to engage your customers. There are a lot of different deployment methods. You know, I talked about the one that I recommend. You know, there's clearly other ways to go about it. However, hopefully that's giving you some thought or food for thought for different deployment methods and the way you can do it in your business. And then marketing needs to utilize these tools also to gather insight, data, understand what their customers want, and target their messaging, you know, so that they can really take advantage of the same tool that operationally is helping you, you know, answer your customers' questions better. So I'm going to open it back up. Next slide, Phil. Open it back up to questions. And Phil, take it away.
All right, both of you, thank you very, very much. A lot of information, and we've gotten some good questions submitted. And again, remember to ask any questions here through the balance. We've got about 10 minutes, roughly. The first question that we have, this sounds like a big project. What would be required from the customer side for setting up this product?
Okay. Emmanuel, do you mind if I take this one?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. So it sounds very daunting, but you know, to start out, the implementation time is really to do a full content analysis of your entire network. Is a much bigger project than just doing a simple content analysis of your website, or maybe you've got some other pieces of material that you know you want to drive to your starting point. So a full content analysis can take, you know, depending on your network and the amount of data and the amount of terabytes, and something like that project could possibly take up to a month, you know, with utilizing the engines and the spiders that are out there today. You know, to do it on a level where it's reasonable, you know, you probably should look to start out with some very targeted content based on what you want the knowledge base to initially do, or what you want your customer engagement to focus on. You know, if you do decide to deploy with a knowledge base, you know, utilizing the semantics like this, it's just a matter of, you know, you could probably be looking at, depending on the complexity again, but it can be a very simple implementation. You know, a week, 2 weeks to get, you know, the APIs and all the tools integrated to your website and the knowledge base set up, and have your people trained on how to create your, you know, your proper questions. So there's a lot of variables. It can be as simple, you know, as simple as you wanted to start the deployment, And if you're looking, say, if you're a multi-divisional company or you've got a lot of different things that you're trying to implement this for, that'll obviously extend out the timeline of it. But it seems a lot more complex than really what it is. That's why it's critical to find a good partner to help you walk through the creation of the entire project as a whole. And maybe you only want to use certain people for certain pieces. That's just really up to you. I recommend finding a solution provider that will really work with you to create your engagement strategy and implement it in the way that makes sense for your business.
Okay. Good answer. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Emmanuel.
I just wanted to say that if we take the query box as an example, I mean, the query box can eventually build us a good understanding of what some of the questions and some of the things that are missing in our content, in our material, in our brochures, in our information. If we can form a query box, like with the interactive assistant, where it's not intrusive and not aggressive, we allow the customer to ask anything they want. We allow them to direct themselves throughout our website. When they can't find that information, it automatically opens a window of opportunity for us to spot something that may be missing that we may want to add. So the query box implementation is something that's fairly quick, and that's one way of getting started.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's definitely a powerful way, as I said, that really gives you a lot of insight into what your customers want. As you were saying, Emmanuel, I agree completely. That's why that is after you understand your dormant data. And not everybody takes that step. Not everybody looks at their past data because maybe they didn't collect it. Maybe they haven't been storing any unstructured data, or maybe they just want to start scratch, start fresh. So you don't necessarily have to do it. I recommend doing, understanding your dormant data and using that as a way to launch your query tool and the core of the knowledge base faster. However, you don't have to deploy it in that method. You can simply deploy the query tool in a very easy way and just put what you think is the frequently asked questions, and let the tool do the management and teach you what your customers want. And that type of model, I mean, you're talking about a very short timeline of implementation to get started. So that's a good point, Emmanuel.
Mm-hmm. All right, and that kind of ties into this next question. How do we locate all of our dormant data from our different computers that aren't on the network?
Well, that there's a lot of methods to do that. Really, your data in an unstructured format sits somewhere, and it can be attached to your network. However, if it doesn't sit within your network, then there can be another location where we actually spider and discover and read and analyze that data.
Sure.
When you're talking about that kind of, if you're that segmented across your entire network, you probably already recognize that you have a serious data problem, or what most people would call a big data problem. And that even doing an analyzation like this and categorization may be even more critical for that kind of environment. So there's always a way. There's more than one way to, and forgive me for the cat lovers, but there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Don't say it. Don't say it. All right. Good questions. We've got a few more, but we've got about 7 minutes. So this is a good one that came in. Our website is fairly outdated. Would it be better to update our website before doing this process or purchasing this software?
Emmanuel, I hate to keep budging in, but I have a very strong opinion about this. So, fill in if you think I missed anything. But my personal opinion is, the query tool. Half the time when you do a redesign, let me take a step back. When you're redesigning your site or you're going through a whole site design, you need to know what your audience wants. The site designs, there's so many out there. There's so many different templates, so many different, theories of how you do that. But the simple reality of understanding what your customers are really looking for is vital to how you should architect your site. So, I mean, in my opinion, the way I would do it is if, you know, I had the ability to understand what my customers are really looking for, I'd probably deploy the search tool while doing the redesign, you know, and utilize some of the knowledge and information that I've gotten from that to really help me design the way my website should look. Now, from a content standpoint, if it's outdated with content, I mean, we all know we need to keep our content fresh. For SEO, we need to keep it fresh for our customers. You know, to leave, you know, stuff out on your website that doesn't, you know, isn't properly presented or isn't accurate is clearly, because it is our new storefront, is clearly a problem. That'd be like having, you know, 3 years ago's fashion out on your floor, you know, at a supposedly high-end boutique for fashion. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You've got to get your data updated. So, you know, I guess it all depends. So to answer your question, I would put the search tool while trying to work through my content. If you're talking about a full site redesign, maybe there's some place in the middle that you can meet where, you know, the deployments are done simultaneously. But I wouldn't wait to start collecting my information from my customers.
Okay. Emmanuel, how do you feel about that? Same?
Well, if I was to look at the content audit and the ability or the capability that it presents, I would also probably dig into my chat scripts and email and sort of do a side-by-side compare with some of the questions being asked and see if there's a consistency there as well. Give myself an opportunity to formulate the right questions to drive my customers' interests a lot better.
Okay. How about, this is a quick one to end it, I hope, because, and it's kind of a neat question. Instead of the cartoon character for the virtual agent, can we use an image of one of our own agents or at least a real person? Okay.
It's a good question, and in today's world and today's technology, it's absolutely possible. However, it's not going to be as cost-effective of a deployment, to be very straightforward. You know, taking someone's body image and putting it, we've seen, I think everybody's probably seen somewhere on a website where you see a person walk out and it makes the foot sounds and or the footsteps, and there they are talking to you, and it's a little cutout of them talking on your screen. That's a recorded video. That's not what that is. This is a live, interactive virtual agent. And to take somebody's facial expressions and record all those and you know, create it so that it could actually work as an avatar in that world and answer the questions and look properly, that would be, it'd be a bit of a project. However, I'd love to see it deployed. I think that would be a very fascinating deployment, especially if somebody, you know, really has an image, you know, in an industry, or as a CEO, you know, they're kind of a celebrity in the industry. I think it'd be a fascinating way to see, you know, to engage your customers and actually allow a real-life person to be the one doing the speaking. Emmanuel, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree with that perfectly.
Okay. It would be a cool deployment, though.
Depends on how the agent looks.
All right, Phil, anything else? Phil?
Phil, are you there?
How about I go on mute, off mute now? Sorry. I was just going to say, we've got just a minute left. Thank you both for being here. And as importantly, thank you, guests, for attending. And hopefully you've learned a lot today. Actually, I learned a couple of things, too, which is always nice. But just a couple things. We've got more of our educational series webinars coming this summer, some pretty exciting ones. And we'll be telling you about those in the near future. Watch your email for the upcoming invites. And as well, if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover, let us know. I mean, that's how we come up with these topics generally. People ask, and and we aim to please as much as we can. And if it's a topic that's interesting, that we think is going to be interesting, we'll use it definitely. And so don't hesitate. Let us know, or let your webinar concierge know. They'll be following up to see if you have any other questions they can answer. And otherwise, the information on our screen is our phone number and our website. Please feel free to visit us, call us. And again, we appreciate you, what you do. We know how hard you work, so get back to it. Thanks so much for being here. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.